they're all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, legionnaires of all ages, welcome to a new show. I know we do lots of them, but find our feet. Right, I'm Nick the Geek, and I am joined as always by two brilliant brains, two marvelous minds, and two fantastic friends. I'm joined by Simon.
Hey, how's it going? I was counting then. I was like, there's three brilliant minds joining me this week.
I will get to our very special
guest. Yeah. Good to be back.
Good to be back. And Andy, got anything to say?
I thought Jimmy wasn't in this anymore. I thought he was to this show.
What?
And we are joined by our very special guest. We are joined by the Wrestling With Your Thoughts heavyweight fantasy booking champion of the world. We are joined by the Drip King himself, Jimmy Bebe. Jimmy, how the hell are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I'm pumped. I'm ready to go because I enjoy chatting with y'all, and it's been too long.
Way too long.
Yes. Right. So, folks, as you can see from this show is called In Our Opinion. Because in my opinion, too many people that talk about wrestling online talk about their opinion as fact and not as opinion. So this show is all about giving our unadulterated, truthful opinions, which is why I have assembled this particular cast of characters. Right, gents, 2 words for our first topic. And Jimmy, I'm going to let you go first because you're our special guest.
What?
Chris Jericho.
My opinion on Chris Jericho in general?
In general, and everything he is doing currently in the business.
Man. So, I love Chris Jericho from the WCW days. I love Chris Jericho from the WWE days. I really didn't feel a whole lot of what he was doing in AEW until you and me both were on this bandwagon of the learning tree was fun. I was with it because I felt like it was doing its job. Yeah. I feel like it's turned south. So I feel, I don't know if my enjoyment of it was based on just, I want to enjoy Chris Jericho because of all the past feelings I've had about him. But I do feel like him taking breaks his entire career was beneficial for him. Him not taking a break right now is hurting him. And if anybody in the wrestling business needs to take a break, it is Chris Jericho.
Well said. Simon, you look like you wanted to chime in.
It's a controversial one. I what I love about Jericho is that it's a dated reference now probably, but he's like the Madonna of wrestling. Not now. But for like 2-3 decades, he's just continuously reinvented himself, reimagined himself, presented himself differently, kept himself fresh, kept up with the times. There's been a few little lulls in that, and I agree with what Jim's saying. Maybe he does need a little bit of time off. For me, going into a feud that we had 4 years ago, that was pretty hot 4 years ago, it's like, why repeat it now? Same as Darby and Mox. It's like, we're going back to 4 years ago. Why? Make it make sense. But I think he takes a lot of flack politically. I'm not going to get into that. But there are a lot of people that think if one person is of a certain political belief, then they're not going to be a fan of the wrestler. They can't separate the wrestler and the character from the person. That's their choice. But I think that's why he gets a lot of the attractions that he does.
Okay, interesting point. Andy, Simon just mentioned the current storyline he's doing with Orange Cassidy over the jacket. Do you think this is Chris's idea? Do you think this is Tony's idea? Why do you think they're doing it?
I think a lot of it is down to Chris himself. I think for some reason, the older Mr. Jericho gets, the more he comes kind of, there's got to be an object or a thing. I mean, this seems to be a common theme in wrestling at the moment, with the bracelet and everything else that's going on, is people just always feel like there's an object or something to go. One thing with Chris is he does give you know, like the whole learning and everything else. He does hit home runs, but I think he needs to do a lot more of it behind the scenes before he brings it to telly. Because I feel like sometimes he throws a lot of things on TV before he actually hits a home run. If that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I'll use the Vince Russo analogy, where Vince Russo under Vince McMahon, when he had a filter above him, was fantastic. He wrote great TV, did great things. He went to WCW, they removed that filter above him, and he produced garbage. And I think Jericho is suffering from not having a real leader in the company from a wrestling standpoint. I don't think it's helpful having a man like Tony Khan, who is a fan like the rest of us, but realistically can barely book his way out of a paper bag, have the overall yes or no without some kind of booking committee. Now,
they had 27
Jimmy.
people on the booking committee, apparently writing stuff.
Yeah, there's layers to this.
That's a crazy amount if it's true, but I think TK said it. So if you can't
No.
trust
Okay,
him,
I
who
didn't
can
know
you
that.
trust?
Good point. Right. So, what should we go with next? In fact, this will be fun.
So while we're on the topic of Chris Jericho, I would
Mhm.
like to just go ahead and bring up what we were talking about before.
Believe my guest.
So at CMLL, Jericho and Mystico wrestled in a 2 out of 3 falls match. I'm assuming Chris Jericho won one of those falls because then on Collision last night, they edited footage, and then Tony Schiavone declared Chris Jericho the winner of the match by using the clip of Mystico tapping out. So, I think the question here is, Cy brought up the question, and it's a great one. Is this a Tony Khan decision or is this a Chris Jericho decision? Because, there's nobody stopping Chris Jericho from doing the things that he's doing. So, in y'all's opinion, who would you think was behind that decision right there?
Simon?
Honestly, if he's still involved with the company in any way, I kind of want to blame Vampiro, because the last triple R Mania that I watched, yeah, there was a lot of his fault there.
Dope ass chocolate bar, man.
I don't know. Is it some kind of crazy deal with the company where they've arranged for them both to get the wins on their national TV? It's crazy that we're getting stuff like this in this day and age.
Andy, I'll let you go before me.
So I don't think anyone's to blame. I think it's a collective, because from what I gather, Tony Khan signs off on everything before it makes it to TV. Yeah, especially creative wise. I think obviously when they're in the matches and stuff, like some of the stupid stuff that we've seen on All Out or whatever it was, yeah, they probably do that themselves in the ring. But as for the creative kind of thing that the gets and whatnot, I suppose Tony Khan signs it off on. So it's kind of it's co-involved in that, or was it Tony Khan who just signed off on it? But it does come across more like a Jericho idea to actually do it.
Well, I tend to agree with Andy a little bit. It does sound like something Chris would say and do. But it's very unprofessional considering the relationship they have with CMML. I feel that and Mystico being one of their biggest stars, I feel like if they've done this deliberately and it wasn't just a slip up by Tony Schiavone, then it can't be good for the relationship between the two companies in any way, shape, or form, surely.
I would say even if it's a slip up by Tony Schiavone, if they don't correct it on Dynamite, it's a problem. Because even if it's a slip up and you just go with it, you're still kind of saying poo-poo on CMLL.
Can I just like stick a conspiracy theory out there? I don't know if this connects or not, but is Mystico close with the guy that was Kalisto? I know they played brothers at one point. Are they still close in Mexico? Because he kind of got blackballed in AEW for crazy reasons a couple of years ago, if you remember.
Yeah, he did. Hunico.
Yeah, no, not Hunico. Kalisto.
Actually,
What was his new name?
uh,
Anyway, I'm just wondering if they're still connected, if there's like any feeling there that goes with it. I don't know.
It's entirely possible, but we can only speculate, really.
I'm just thinking out loud.
It's all right. Andy, you're the business head man here in this room. Right. Surely, from a business standpoint, this has got to be some kind of breach of something, right? Or do you think it's just an honest mistake?
Not necessarily. It depends on what the contract's do. At the end of the day, if there's, there might be a contract in there that deal with each other in up faith. CML could jump in on that one, or there could be mutual promotion, which again they could jump in on that and say that. I think the big thing here is, look, did they not learn a lesson with TNA? Because especially now, WWE obviously open for business with promotions from what it looks like, and he needs to treat his partners well, because otherwise he's just going to lose them. You know what I mean? I do feel there's something I want to say about the TNA deal with WWE, and I'll get to that in a bit, but it's probably a bit different to that one. But they've been doing other stuff with the old Stardom guy, new company Avandy and
Marigold,
whatnot. So yeah. So it's like they're obviously open for business. So Tony needs to see this guy as well. One of his pay-per-views Forbidden Door comes to the UK next year. Again, that's going to continue unless he starts giving people stuff on the other side of it, because that's what it seems to me like. It's all benefit for AEW, but where's the benefit for these other companies? If there's none, then they're just going to cut them off. And I think pulling stupid stuff like that is not a good way to keep them partnerships going. Never mind, even from a legal standpoint, just from a professional standpoint, it's not good.
Yeah. I mean, just for a comparison, compare the relationship AEW had with TNA compared to the relationship NXT now has with TNA.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if you're a business, the one thing you look at is you're always looking for the ROI. You're always looking for your return on investment. And, your investment doesn't always have to be money. In a partnership, you're still looking on the ROI and what's the partnership gaining us. So just to give you an example, in my work the other week, I pulled a deal with another company because when I actually went through it all and looked at it, it was kind of like they were taking the majority of the business and trying to bust the drabs, even though we were the bigger company. So I was like, well, for us, it's not really beneficial to us. You're just using us as this, and we don't need your business, so bye. And we cut them off. And, CMML will probably look at that and go, okay, well, what are we getting? What's our return on investment by giving them our talent, doing these swaps over and whatnot like that? So, and Chris Jericho on it, they'd be happy enough with we're getting the AEW stars on the TV programs or on the shows or whatever it be. It's driving ticket sales, between a 10% growth on ticket sales since Chris Jericho or whoever else it is comes into the shows. That might be enough where they just shut up and let it happen. But, if they're not.
So, just an interesting point that you brought up the TNA one. And I feel like Tony listens to the internet fans a lot. And a lot of the internet gripe between the AEW TNA relationship is that it was one-sided. And according to Scott D'Amore, he had no issue with it. He said the AEW partnership still was very good for TNA. And he gave it off a list of reasons. And if Scott's okay with it, then, who am I to gripe about it? But maybe Tony, again, he listens to the internet fan base. So maybe he's doing it like he's doing business with CMLL, and he's like, yeah, you can have Chris Jericho lose to Mystico, but I'm going to go ahead and, for the fan base that doesn't know, flip it so that my people still look good as an ego thing. And like I've said this before, I think the reason AEW and WWE will never work together is because both of those companies have too big of an ego to allow one to get the upper hand on the other.
But can I just ask you something, Jim? If you're AEW, why would you have an ego in that situation? Because if me, for instance, in my business, if I'm working for Roller Cola, yeah, and I get a chance to work Coca-Cola, based on the size of the brands and what the the worldwide exposure and everything else that comes with it, how could I go into it with that ego? And that's the problem in my eye, is AEW have got an unfound ego.
You have a different mindset than Tony has, and Tony has a different mindset than Nick has, and Nick has a different. Everyone has a different mindset. So, like, I'm just trying
but my mindset's not based on my own personal mindset. It's based on a business mindset of
do you think
what am I bringing?
Do you think Tony runs AEW on a business mindset or on a personal mindset?
Well, there you go. That's the question I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah. He runs it as a business mind, as a personal mindset, and that's why that's how I've been able to kind of enjoy AEW a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, he's just basically a wrestling fan like one of us. He has billions and billions of dollars, so he's just going to run it the way he wants to run it because that's just who he is, and he doesn't really give a shit because money is no option to him. Once it becomes an option to him and he doesn't change course, we'll see what happens. But that's just how I've been able to start enjoying it.
Let me ask you this question then. How long is it before his dad turns around and goes, this is enough, this is not where?
No clue. But hopefully it's not until AEW starts turning a profit, if they aren't. I don't know. I'm just speaking.
I mean, the other thing as well, can I ask you a question is, will Tony's ego come back to bite him on this one? Because if you're like me, whether I'm a big company or I'm a little company, so like, I'll get into the WWE stuff in a bit, but they're bringing in talent into NXT. You've got some established talent in TNA who are coming in and giving probably less experienced talent in NXT, you know, matches, and it's more experience for them and all this kind of thing. So there's a benefit there for them. There's a benefit from TNA's side for the exposure. Now, if Tony is wanting to ever break into the Mexican market, say, or, you know, which is he's probably doing nothing CML, that's what makes more sense because it's quite a tough market to break, is it not? Which is why CML does so well over there. Is would you want to change results and things to make your guys look strong? So if you're so my audience think differently, but it's like, okay, you know, it's not, it's the point of it, it's the whole point of it not to bring that audience over with Chris when he comes back.
You would think so, but again, I think trying to wrap our head around the way Tony Khan's minds and business operations operate, I think is kind of a lost cause at this point. Because I'm not trying to like shit on the guy, but from a business mindset, it just appears like he doesn't really care about it when it comes to the wrestling stuff, because we continue to see things. He just does the things he wants to do. And if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. He doesn't care. It's just the way he's going to do things.
I mean, I think we can all agree that Tony Khan is essentially a kid playing with his wrestling figures.
Yeah, and I don't want to fault him too much for it because, you know, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and his dad never took it out, apparently, and he just gets to do what he's doing. And, like, I can't sit here and say I wouldn't do something similar if I was a multi-billionaire and I could make my own wrestling. I want to do the wrestling I want to see. So... From a fan's perspective, I'm just like, do what you want to do. But from a business perspective, it's like, this is kind of weird. Why are you doing it? There's two sides to it. Is that kind of what I'm getting at?
Simon?
There's somebody else, famous name, infamous name in wrestling, who trapped a multi-million-dollar company as his own personal playground. And again, I think like Tony, I think he was successful at it for a good 10 years plus. But you get to a point where you're all out of ideas and you start repeating yourself and you need help keeping your products up to date and interesting. And I think he's at that point.
Okay, which brings us handily on to my next topic, gents. This is kind of a combo one, so I'm going to paint you a picture.
So can I just jump in for a minute? Just because it's relatively flashing, we just wrote TNA and WWE's relationship at the moment. So...
we will get to that. Hold that. We will get to that.
Well, I thought it kicked off.
No.
Yeah. Diva.
So, let me paint you a picture, fellas. A couple of weeks ago was All In. Daniel Bryan wins the World Heavyweight Championship. Next Dynamite, John Moxley walks out and tells Tony Schiavone, this is not your company anymore. Next week,
it was never
one of the best angles they've done in a very long time. Hangman burning down Swerve's house. It was brilliantly done. This is followed by what is being referred to as the sickest pay-per-view AEW have ever produced because of two things. One, Bryan Danielson having what was a spot done by Terry Funk towards Ric Flair 30 years ago of having a paper bag shoved over his head and choking him unconscious, while the crowd all chanted, "This is murder." And earlier on, and following that, in the main event steel cage match, Adam Hangman Page chose to bring out a hypodermic needle and inject Swerve Strickland in the mouth with some kind of narcotic that knocked him out and enabled him to win the match after powerbombing the man on a cinder block. Now, my question to you, and I'm going to let Andy go first because he looks like he's chomping at the bit, is do you think AEW is just trying to copy ECW, having that one last gasp of seeing if hyperviolence can capture the audience's imagination? Or do you think this is a case of the inmates running the asylum and Tony letting his wrestlers go too far for the modern audience of 2024?
So first of all, just to go right back, I don't know if Moxley's relapsed back to drugs because he was telling the wrong Tony that not his company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first one.
Go on, Jim.
So every time that Tony Khan makes an announcement on AEW to appease something, it's through the earpiece and mouth of Tony Schiavone. So I think that was a direct message to Tony Khan through Tony Schiavone. I think it's very hard to understand for most wrestling fans because, again, it's hard to follow AEW in the way they do things if you're not like one of those diehard, I don't want to say marks, but one of those people who just lives and breathes the shit and watches it all. But that's how I took it. So I do understand the gripe 100%, but I do think that's how it was intended to be.
Okay, so let's unpack with the other bit, Bob. So first of all, the bag didn't bother me. Seeing as bad as that stuff around before, and also just it's an easy way to kind of do it without actually hitting somebody. Same with Breeze Block again doesn't really bother me too much. It is what it is. Epidemic Needle was just so stupid. So stupid. It didn't need to be there. It didn't add to the match in my opinion. It made it look more stupid. Swerve Strickland's a really good worker. I like him as a character, and what I've done doesn't entertain me. But Belter, he's quite a good wrestler. So to have doing stuff like that is just really stupid. And to answer your other question, yes, it is the inmate run the asylum. It's been that way for a long time. If it wasn't, the Young Bucks wouldn't be the tag champs anymore. Because I thought, was it Collision they wrestled on this week? Or was it Sorry, it was All Out. I watched their match on All Out.
Yeah.
They didn't get heat off the crowd or not heat. They got knocked. The crowd didn't even stand up. I was watching it.
They're indifferent to them now.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, no one cares about you, do you know what I mean? The only people that care about them is them. And it's like, you're probably getting paid a hell of a lot of money. What are you contributing to this company? That was what my thought was with it. So again, to go back to that, I still think the inmates are running the asylum, but I think the wrong people are in the wrong jobs. That is the biggest issue with Tony. Now, you can go on saying Tony wants to be, this wrestling dude and, wants to run it his way and all the rest of it. That's absolutely fine. But he needs to if he put the right people around him, he'd be fine. Do you know what I mean? If I'm going to run a company, like, I hate Donald Trump, I stand him. Do you really think Donald Trump become this billionaire based on his own little things? No. Same with Vince McMahon. No. They put the right people around themselves at the right times. That's what good businessmen do.
Perfect example. He put Vince Russo next to him right at the right time to establish the Attitude Era because WWF was about to go out of business. That's why Bret Hart had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But he put the right person in the right time. Yes.
Jerry McDivitt. Jerry McDivitt was in the right place where he needed to be. You've got finance officers we don't even know about, and that's the difference.
So, Si, you are the only one among us that I know of to have attended the original ECW arena shows. So you should have an interesting thought process on this.
One. I went to one. I don't like coming on these shows and getting political, but it's hard to not touch on it with this subject. So the way I see this thing is, it's not a case of how much is too much, like visually. It's a case of how it is brought on. Like actual harm, actual danger, actual violation of you or your co-workers, like actually drawing blood deliberately. actually piercing things through your mouth. We don't see that in any other form of entertainment at all. Films, TV shows, it's not there anywhere.
Horror.
In this day and age, why are we still doing this? Why are we still supporting this? Because it filters down to the people that are the up and comers, and not even the indies, in the backyard companies. And you're getting people that are brutalizing themselves, causing permanent damage, breaking bones, taking risks, just to try and make a name for themselves in front of 10, 15 fans. It's encouraging and enabling that behavior. It's irresponsible, it's barbaric, and it doesn't belong on TV nowadays. Unless it's all smoke and mirrors and CGI, in which case, go at it.
Okay, Jim. Now, I know you want to talk about this because you messaged me. So, when it comes to Tony Khan, I've said to all you before that he, for a long time, just seemed to wanted AEW to be WCW. The way he made it look, the way it was shot, everything like that. I think he's given up on the WCW idea, and now he wants it to be ECW with the budget. Where do you think he's going with this? Do you think this is just the odd pay-per-view just to spike a rating, or do you think this is going to become now a core motif of what AEW is going forwards?
So, to answer the question about what I think Tony Khan, like he was WCW, now he's that. I don't think Tony Khan has an identity for AEW, because I feel like every few months, let's just say 6 months, it seems like they change the direction of how they're doing things. This has been a pattern for a while now. I feel like we kind of go over and over with it because it's like they go on a hot streak and then things start to dip, so they change it up. Instead of staying the course, which is what I have said multiple times they should be doing, they change course to appease this kind of fan base, and then this other fan base kind of starts to dwindle away. So I've even seen some of the diehards say at points that they were ready to dip out, but then they change course again. They have a new identity, and then those fans come back, and then the fans like myself kind of be like, all right, well, maybe I need to take a break. That's kind of what I think AEW's identity is. There is never going to be one. It's just going to go through like just phases, like a teenager. Like I'm emo, and now I'm this, and now I'm like, that's what it seems like there is. What was the second part? I already forgot. I'm sorry.
All right. I've forgotten myself now.
Oh, okay, well, as far as what I think,
Great hostess, folks. What can you say?
As far as what I think the direction is now, I think it's what Mox is doing. Whatever Mox is doing is what the direction of that entire company is going to be, because the main story right now is centralized around what Mox is doing. And we all know that he's ultra violent. Like that's his demeanor. And we saw it all out. We saw, like Andy brought up, the plastic bag over Brian's head, the just grotesque spots. This is my opinion. Again, that's the name of the show. In the cage match, and then the hypodermic needle, all this stuff. Like I think you're not going to see that on television because they'd get kicked off immediately these days. You're just not going to see it. But on the pay-per-views, I think they're going to start going this route. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing as a whole. It's a bad thing for me though, because I don't want to see it, and it's why.
You know what? Si's got the point, though, Jim. I think Si's got the big point. Is I don't mind it, same as you, right? Or let me ask you if you mind it, if it's done in a correct and safe way. But is it because the reason with violence for you, is it because you know that like the breeze box reel, the needle's real? Is that what gets you?
I think it's the visuals, because I know a lot of people were complaining about the chair shot to the head. I don't care about it because I know it's dangerous. I 100% know it's dangerous, and I don't think we should be seeing it on a week-to-week basis like we used to see. That's terrible. It's horrible. But at the end of the day, it was Swerve's decision to take that. My only issue with it will be 20 years from now, if Swerve has these problems and then he feels like the wrestling business owes him something because he signed off on the fact that he wanted to take that chair shot. I wrote an article about this with the NFL like 10 years ago, how all these players are like, I deserve this and I deserve that. No, you don't. Anybody that watches the game knows it's a violent game. You're getting paid millions of dollars to risk that. And if you can't accept that, don't do it.
There's a thing called personal opinion that's just slowly getting deleted.
Yeah. So my issue was the plastic bag. I don't care if it was done before. My kid watches. And that's just not because it's not a movie. Even though wrestling is fake, the stuff they're doing is real. And that's a horrible thing to watch. And I wanted to turn it off then, but I didn't because I was very invested in Swerve and Hangman. So I watched Swerve and Hangman, and I'm watching some of these spots, and I'm like, I'm not enjoying it. And then the hypodermic needle came out. He stuck it in his mouth, and I turned it off. I didn't even care what happened after that. Like, I just didn't because it just was too much for me. And for the people out there that are like, well, kids shouldn't be watching AEW, kiss my ass. My son started watching wrestling because of John Cena. And then he found out Chris Jericho through the band Fozzy. And I was like, oh, I'm about to blow your mind because he didn't know Chris Jericho was a wrestler. He just knew the band. So I showed him AEW. And then he fell in love with the people like Sammy Guevara. He found Ricochet, who was in WWE, so that was good. Then he found Will Ospreay, and he's obsessed with him. So these fans that are like, kids shouldn't be watching AEW. So I should tell my kid that these wrestlers that you've discovered shouldn't be watching y'all show? That's stupid to me. And that's my issue with All Out.
In the UK, RTV programs whatnot don't have ratings or anything because it's more after 9:15. She had an AEW on until 11, I believe, or something. Because the graveyard, because no one watches it here. In the US, is it kind of noted that it's not for kids anyway?
I think there's I don't pay attention to it because again, I let my kid. People would probably say I shouldn't let my kid watch this or that. Kiss my ass. I grew up doing the same things, and I turned out perfectly fine. I think it's all about how I allow him to watch it and how the conversations happen afterwards. That's all it is. I do think on Dynamite and like the TV shows, there are the ratings in the corner. I don't think they're there all night. It may, when they come back for a commercial, when the show starts, it's there.
And what rating is it?
What's that?
I think.
What rating is it?
TV 14.
I think so.
14, yeah.
I think so. But again, I don't.
But I have a 14-year-old kid saying you have, Jimmy, and it's like I still wouldn't want me 14-year-old kids watching that.
Yeah, that's my point. And I'm not here to say they shouldn't do it. If they want to do it, do it. I'm not saying what they did was wrong because it's just my opinion. But I think it's silly for people to do the, oh, you're a snowflake or you're anything because I don't want to see it. Like
question for the room.
What's that?
As well, a question for the room. Has anyone ever seen a Do Not Try This at Home on AEW?
No.
So how long is it going to take until them kids fix a needle for his made face?
I think part of that falls back on the parenting. But at the same time, if I'm not around, he's with his friends at his friend's house. He's like, hey, I saw this on AEW. You want to try it? That's my take on it. And again, this is not me saying they shouldn't do it. It's my reason on why I kind of chose to turn it off.
The thing for me is, I'm the same as you. Like, it should say don't try this at home because he could watch that when I'm not there or when I'm not about, or nowadays with like a bloody TikTok or whatever it may be. But it's like watching something with him, like I let him watch films and stuff, but I manage what he's watching, and also I manage his expectation. So I say to him, like, you know, it's not real, that mate's in a movie or whatever it may be. But when someone's literally sticking a hypodermic needle through somebody's mouth, it's like, how do you explain that away?
Yeah.
And then, you know, they don't have to do not try a home sign and everything else. And as you say, it only takes one kid or one situation for that to all spill. It's just irresponsible in my eyes. Very irresponsible.
It is. I mean, I'm not a parent like you three. So obviously I look at it through a slightly different. That's true. Yeah, it's kind of true. Yeah. So I'm not a parent like you three. Emphasis on
cats not putting plastic bags over the cats' heads, man.
No, right? But maybe it's my age, maybe it's the fact that as you get older, you become desensitized to things. But certain things are unnecessary in professional wrestling. And for me, a large problem with AEW's booking in the last 8, 9, 10 months has been a lot of unnecessary things. Like, even little things, like they have a fantastic match design in the Casino Gauntlet, but he's had 4 in the past 3 months. The company seems...
Ospreay wins them all.
Yeah.
See, I have a thing, though, in my eyes. It's like, You know, whenever I work, and I always think it means I want to work smart, not hard, and it doesn't mean I want to sit all day and do nothing. I'm always looking at things and going, is there a more efficient way or better to do this? And it's like, you know, nowadays, as I mentioned before, with CGI stuff, you know, you could have a phone breeze block or whatever. Why would you really want to take your head off a breeze block or stick a needle through your mouth when, you know, you get one of them retractable needles that doesn't go all the way through and stuff? It just, you know, to me, it's kind of, again,
It's unnecessary.
You know, back in the 80s, like Flair or whatever else, or whoever it may be, even, like, getting busted over the hard way is another one. Shout out Cody Rhodes, you stupid idiot, because there's no need for it nowadays. Even within there's no need for that. You know, there's other ways to do things. Do it the other way. Why have to make a point of it?
So Ricky Morton made a great analogy here, like, because people were questioning Ricky Morton for calling out some of the stuff they were doing, which is just fucking insane to me.
Yeah, it is.
Apologize, but he said, I ran so these wrestlers could walk. There's no reason for them to do the insane things I was doing when today, like ECW back in the day had to do it for the shock value because the athletes back then were not capable of doing the things that they're doing now. The things they're doing now have made the things that ECW was doing kind of obsolete. You don't need to do them anymore. What they're doing is amazing. So
the
why?
Thing is, though, even with mate, the rises in technology and everything, do you know what I mean? How many stuntmen in Hollywood died years ago trying to do high speed car chases or jumping out of buildings or whatever else? You don't need to do that anymore because of CGI. So same thing for me is, if there's a safer, easier way to do something, why do you want to go and do the hard way? There's no need to.
Well, food for thought, guys. As Jimmy pointed out so astutely earlier on, the center of the whole storyline in AEW at the moment is Jon Moxley.
Oh, God help us.
Now, we all knew how much creative control Punk and Bryan had over Collision. Mm-hmm. Because when they were in charge of Collision, it was the best 3 months that show had ever had. Do you think, any of you, that there is a chance that Jon Moxley has been given a bit of the book in AEW? Because all of this really stinks of Joey John does business in the ring.
I hope not. That's all I have to say.
I think we'll find out in a few weeks if in the middle of an episode we get a 7-way scramble match that Juicy Finau wins.
Yeah, or also the what's called the commentator start bleeding.
I'll say this. I'm indifferent on it because I do enjoy Jon Moxley for the most part. I'm one of those people. I really do enjoy when he's. There's a limit though. Once he crosses that line, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm out. Like I said, the bag was one of those things. I literally wanted to turn off All Out. The only thing that kept me invested is the fact that Swerve burnt down Hangman burnt down Swerve's house, and I was literally sold. I want to see what happens here. And I did.
Do you know when he burns down? You know when Hangman burns his house down? Or like, if thinking is, well, Swerve says that this is his house, so like, you know, and I wasn't impressed because they didn't burn an arena down.
Well, technically, they'd have to burn every arena and they go to.
Can I touch on what you just said, Jimmy? With you got to the point, and that was the point where it was too much. I think a good comparison for me, at least, is like you guys have all seen the Saw franchise, right? All the Saw films.
Yes. Unfortunately,
first one was grisly, a couple of cringy bits, but it did what it did. And then you get a little bit further into the series. I forget if it was Saw 2 or Saw 3, and there was the hypodermic needle pit. I got to that point. That was 2. I got to that point, and I was like, no, that's too much. Turned it off.
That's a great analogy. That's great because I loved the first Saw movie. That was brilliant. I'm a big horror buff. I just love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the second one, and I was like, I enjoyed it because the story was enough to overtake kind of some of the grotesque stuff they were doing. But then the third one came around, and there was no substance to go with the grotesque. And I dipped out, and I didn't watch another one until Spiral. So I missed out on like 6 or 7 Saw movies because that just literally turned me away from them. And that. Yeah. So yeah, that was a great example.
Yeah, it was a great example. All right. So
also,
moving on, gents.
Just to jump in very quickly. Jim, I know you said before, I do enjoy what Moxley does, but I enjoy McDonald's breakfast once a week, but if it's 7 days, mate, it becomes sickly.
We all have our different preferences, man. That's all I can say.
What I'm saying is there's a difference between you enjoying Moxley's spots in AEW and then Moxley just like running wild in AEW and doing it everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm
when he's
saying.
not on screen.
There's a
Well,
line.
yeah, but I'd like to point out he's basically done exactly what I've been saying he's trying to do. He's trying to become Terry Funk. He's even doing Terry Funk spots now with the paper
Mate,
bag.
he couldn't even have Terry Funk's box.
No, but he wants to be Terry Funk desperately. I think that is John Moxley's drive in his career, is to be considered the modern day Terry Funk.
I'll end it with saying I do think John Moxley has a lot of. I do think he's great for wrestling as long as he's. It's kind of the Jericho thing we were talking about before. As long as he's like, there's someone stopping him from crossing that line.
Yeah.
That's my take on Mox. I think he's great.
Do you know, to be honest, he reminds me more of a Monday Foley, where sometimes you've got to save him from himself.
Good way of putting it.
I think that's perfect.
And speaking of Mick Foley, he used to work for WWE. And we're moving over the fence, gents, because we're running out of time, and I've still got one more topic before we cut to our special bit. WWE TNA relationship. I think it is brilliant. I have thoroughly enjoyed. Oh, good. I have thoroughly enjoyed what has been presented so far. I think from a television show standpoint, it's brilliant. Let me reiterate that. However, it does feel a little bit for me like WWE are going, Jordan Grace, for example, right? We will feed all of this NXT talent to Jordan Grace on NXT television, TNA television. But in a few months, Jordan's coming with us.
So they're doing what Tony Khan did.
Well, I've got a point here. I got you in track.
Go on, Simon. You're up first.
I've loved it. I've enjoyed it. I went to dozens of TNA shows back in the day, going back 20 years. Lifetime fan. Seeing them get the exposure, seeing Jordan Grace in the Rumble, all the fallout from that has been really good, and I think TNA have benefited a heck of a lot from it. I think it's also brought across some of their, albeit small, but loyal fan base across the other way. There's been some good matchups, but I got to the point this week where a man whose name I'm not going to say because he vanity searches himself 12 times a day, and he'll instantly watch the show if I mention his name, lost in his debut to the North American champion. Let's just put it like that. And there's no way that you should debut Hammerstone. Oh, shit, I've done it now. He'll be watching. There's no way you should debut Hammerstone with a loss because that guy is money.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think the treatment of Hammerstone was terrible because he didn't just get beat, he got beat.
Yeah.
Like convincingly. It wasn't even like he had Obafemi reeling at any point. They booked him to just look big and get slammed.
And when you've seen him in companies like MLW, and he's been like the undefeated champion for like a year or whatever it was. And I know that's a small company and it's a smaller pond, but when you've seen that, and then you see him make that kind of debut to a guy who, no disrespect to him, he's got a lot of potential, but he's had maybe a dozen televised matches in his career. He's a rookie. And when you see Hammerstone come in and lay down straight away for him, it doesn't sit right with me.
It's a fair point, mate. It's a fair point. Andy.
Should have been Moose.
Nicholas. Right. Don't put that out to the world. That idiot. So I think WWE is test driving the car. To be honest with you. So I think that at the moment they're getting through a little bit. I think that I can't even remember remind me who owns TNA?
Anthem Sports and Entertainment.
I think Anthem rid of them. I think WWE are probably going about it a different route to what they were doing with what they done with WCW back in the day, where it was just it was on the table. But I think having a good look at all the talent that's there, the ones that they think will do it too, because like the likes of Moose and some of what they class as TNA top guys, they're not interested. They're all 10 a penny, you know what I mean? The crap. They're all fish in a little pond. But, you know, the likes of Joe Hendrys, your Grace, Jordan Grace, and all that type of people, they're the one they want. And I think what they're doing is they're looking at it and saying, you know, is the contract worth it? How much can we get this for? Because don't forget, there's a big a massive TNA back catalogue that would look really nice on there to go into the WWE deal. You know what I mean? And then also when WWE finish up on Peacock, which I believe is next year, is it, or the year after?
It starts on Netflix in January.
January
but that's only Raw in the US, isn't it, I believe?
What's that?
It's only
it's,
Raw in
as
the US,
far as we
isn't it?
know, in Europe and the rest of the world, it will be Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. But in America, it will just be Monday Night Raw.
It'll just be Raw, but I think the catalog is going to Netflix with it. I think. I don't know.
It's not. It's not. It's literally Netflix. The Peacock deal still doesn't run out.
I'll look
a
it
little
up
bit longer. Yeah, look, I'm sure it's another year or so. But to add in that TNA catalog would be a really, be a big deal for them. But I don't know why. I just got a feeling that the way that they're doing this thing is, if they buy it, are they going to keep TNA running and just keep throwing over the NXT stars over there? Because they have a lot of people in the performance sense and not even made it to TV and are not making it to TV. So it's like, okay, you can make another NXT show, or you can go down the route and just put them into TNA, because then you're not overexposing the NXT.
Kind of use it like the old FCW under NXT.
Yeah. And then you've got that, but as I say, that back catalogue is where the money is, isn't it?
You look at the matches, it's Kurt Angle spent more time in TNA than he spent in WWE.
There's a lot of people from AEW that are
alone.
some stuff in TNA too, so you're kind of like, hey, we got some of their stuff.
And they've got AJ's whole back catalog. They've got a lot of guys.
You could do a lot of cool documentary stuff with AJ Styles if you have that TNA stuff.
Yeah, which is going to get action too. But I think when Anthem got rid of them all, there was all kinds of arguments from what I believe about budgets and everything else that sat in there. And it's like, okay, well, that obviously tells you that Anthem don't really see this as a viable product going forward. But in the meantime, it's working out well for them. I think they were saying the 15% growth in ticket sales since the WWE went ahead. TNA is seeing, so it's a nice for them. But again, based on I look at them sometimes and think the people they've got under contract and the way that they tape the show and everything else is like, surely you can't be making a lot of money. You know what I mean? Surely they can't. They must be losing more. I mean, I know I'm from a big company, but sometimes maybe like the Turner one, which where in the end they're just like, yeah, I want this, and WWE. Okay, well, let's put something together, because to me it's good business sense, and Nick Khan's really known there's good business sense in the fact of, okay, well, let's have a close look at it while we're working with them.
So, real quick, the Peacock deal ends March of 2026.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
So
it's still got another year.
And it's not part of the Netflix deal as of yet. The next deal was all that. Now, apparently in the Peacock deal, there's a piece of exclusivity.
Okay.
So they're just getting Raw and not SmackDown.
They're not getting SmackDown. They're not getting NXT. They're not. I don't even.
They're not getting SmackDown.
They're not getting. Sorry, just run that by you again, Jim. They're not getting SmackDown.
Yeah, not getting SmackDown. There you go.
I mean, I made fun when Jake had the hose title, so it's only fair to do it the other way around, right? That logo.
Can I just ask as well, like, with that new logo, the first thing I see with is like, we've got so much good technology now. Why have you gone backwards?
Why does it look like it was made on a Windows 95?
Yeah.
It's kind of like your background.
Hey, shut up. This is the height of technology for someone who can barely use a computer.
Can I just speak on something I wouldn't speak on real quick?
Yeah, go on.
I will say I was just as disappointed about the Alex Hammer. I'll say his name because I'm a fan and I think it was dirty. From a business standpoint, maybe it's all good and that's fine. But as a fan's perspective, I thought it was absolutely crap to have him go on there. And that's been my issue with the partnership. It's been good for TNA, good for them. Ticket sales are up, all that other jazz. If that's correlated to WWE, fantastic. I don't like seeing that kind of stuff. I think it's silly.
Yep.
Yeah. It reminds me very much of how the NXT people used to be treated on the main roster. It's like I said, with the whole Jordan Grace thing. It's like they'll feed a load of their undercard girls to Jordan Grace over on TNA, but at some point she's going to come over here and make us a big number. So it's not the same.
I think that's kind of crappy too. And because I don't want to be hypocrite here, I called Tony Khan out for doing it with New Japan. This is exactly what WWE is doing with TNA. I think it's
but TNA is still getting
it's horrible for the other side.
TNA is still getting the benefit of the ticket sale and the other things and the increased viewerships. You know, to put it into perspective, TNA's Twitter following doesn't even have as much as what Sheamus does.
So it's good for TNA now, but what happens when WWE purges all that talent and then that talent's not there anymore? Because that's what happened to New Japan. Tony has purged all their top talent, and then New Japan kind of is in right? Am I wrong there?
WWE are going to buy
TNA. Same spot once WWE's done saying we want Hendry, we want.
But they won't, because they're going to take the company. I think that's probably the stick point. You know, I think a lot of the sticking point is if they want to buy TNA. I think Anthem is saying this is not a Turner deal. If you buy TNA, you buy their contracts as well.
I don't think they're
possibly.
I would actually think, I don't know the ins and outs, but I know years ago, back in say 2008, 2009, there was only maybe like 8 people contracted to Impact. Everybody else was just like in and out talents.
Since they got rid of Scott D'Amore, they've gone back to pay per appearance deals.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how many people are actually physically still under contract to TNA. We'd have to check. Right, but on that note, gents, moving on because we're actually fast running out of time. I'm going to enjoy this bit. Gentlemen, I would like each of your most unpopular wrestling opinions. Simon, would you like to go first?
You'd like me to go first? I don't know if we'll leave time for the people.
I'll go first. If you want me to go first, I'm not fussed.
It's up to you, dude.
Well, okay, I'll go first. And I think it's going to be an unpopular one in the room. Jack Perry wants to be Raven.
I was against it at first because you told me it before. I kind of see it now since I've been watching a little bit. It's evolved, and I kind of agree with you now.
He literally wants to be Raven. He's doing Raven's pose in the ring. He's entering the ring in a beat up old truck, looking miserable, right? Carrying a beat up belt that he's made himself. Cutting a quizzical promo on the way to the ring that basically means nothing, but it's about a middle-class, white, rich kid being depressed about the fact that he's got nothing to be depressed about. And then he does it again after he wins his match and he immediately leaves. He wants to be Raven.
I don't think
I have been berated and complained at online for saying this. He wants to be Raven. He wants to be what Raven was for ECW for AEW. And I hate to say it, but good on Jack Perry for wanting to do it. Good on him, because he's literally making the best out of a bad situation, and you can't really blame anybody for doing that. But he wants to be Raven. I'm putting it out there on the entire of YouTube now because I'm tired of people in Twitter telling me I'm wrong. He wants.
There's no wrong in opinion.
Yes, exactly.
He'll be wearing jorts soon.
Opinions are arseholes. Everyone's gone. But I you know what, mate, I get that when I hear it, because to be honest with you, I look at Jack Perry and I just don't care. Like, this is the bad thing with Jack Perry is I don't hate him, I don't like him, I just don't care. So anything he's saying, I just don't really take in. I'm just like, nah. It was like in the match with Darby Allin, All In, and it was like they used paper parcel tape to wrap his hands. And I was just like, oh, bored off. And then, yeah, that was it. They lost me.
Fair enough. Right, Si, your unpopular wrestling opinion, please.
Oh, an unpopular one. I thought, I was thinking of a popular one. I was going to be like, the Outrunners should be the tag team champs.
So there you go. That was going to be mine as well.
I mean, why was that not done? Why did they not win the Battle Royal? Why do they often have to have another match? It makes no sense. An unpopular wrestling opinion. Okay. I don't know how unpopular this one is. But the booking around Grand Slam absolutely sucks. So we have a match made between Bryan Danielson and basically it was going to be a world title defense, and then all of a sudden the match is changed, not by TK but by Mox, because Danielson isn't fit to compete, and then he's booked again on the same show against Nigel McGuinness, which, on a segue, is a fucking personal note for me, because I was ringside live for that match in Liverpool nearly 20 years ago, and the fact that it's been shoe-end and it's been forced in with about 3 weeks build, and the fact that it's going to be played off as if neither man are 100% fit, and the fact that it's taking place in America and not in the UK when we've just had them over here. There's so much wrong with this situation. It could be so much better than it is, and it's properly pissed me off. That's my opinion.
No, I would completely agree. The fact that Bryan was taken out of a match because he was too injured to compete to then be put into another match makes zero fucking sense, pardon my French.
No sense.
Jimmy?
Okay, so before I go, I would like to point out, again, I don't watch Collision, so I didn't hear it, so I don't really know. And again, it's y'all's opinion, and you're allowed to still hate it because I don't think it's that good either. But apparently Nigel McGuinness did connect the dots on Collision as to why he was able to book himself into the match with Danielson. So you'd have to go back and go look for the clip or whatever.
I have not watched Collision today.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying it makes it better. I'm just saying they have connected the dots, which is something AEW I want to give credit to. They have gotten better to an extent at not leaving so many things open-ended.
True.
As far as an unpopular opinion, okay, Sai's not going to think this is unpopular, but everyone else might, and I don't give a shit. Dominic Mysterio should dethrone Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental title and then go into WrestleMania and retire John Cena when he goes to the Grand Slam and he can't defeat Dominic Mysterio because he can't. Dominic Mysterio's the fucking GOAT, and that's what I think should happen. I'm booking it now. You know how I am with this stuff. Just don't be surprised when it happens, baby. That's my unpopular opinion. Deal with it, everybody.
Well, I'm not going to say that's an unpopular opinion because
Hold on.
Braun Breaker's
Braun Breaker at the Monday after Bad Blood. There you go. That makes it even more unpopular because everyone wants Braun Breaker to do his little whole jab. No, screw that. Dom's the guy now. Braun Breaker needs to just take a course for a little bit. He shouldn't be rewarded everything right out the gate. That's not how things work.
He's boring.
yes,
Unless Jim, I completely agree with you. You got to pay your dues, right? You shouldn't get things straight away, unless you're Alex Hammerstone. Yeah,
I just don't think he should have fed the whole thing. That's all. Yeah. That's all.
In like 4 minutes.
Moose would have been a better option for me, honestly.
Okay, Andy finishes off with this week's unpopular wrestling opinion, please.
Well, depends on who watches and who it is, but Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, is a waste of talent, a waste of money, and it was her fault for the match with Britt Baker at All In.
Waste of Monet.
Yeah.
Waste of Monet. Well,
and the reason I'll just expand on that. The reason why she's such a waste of space, is, I mean, you know, she might tongue on Tony's balls, and you know what I mean, to make her move, but she's divorced, isn't she? Because she's certainly not in the ring. You know, she was crap against Britt Baker, and they slammed Britt Baker. Now, as much as I don't like the Chinese one, or the Japanese, from a talent point of view. What I mean by that is from an entertainment point of view. Not to be ruthless, but like, you know, when they can't talk, they can't really, you know.
No, it's perfectly fine. You don't connect with Japanese stars the same way you connect with Western stars. That's perfectly acceptable. I do
when I'm watching them bell to bell, but there's a difference between bell to bell and entertainment. Whereas bell to bell, Shida is really, really good, and her match against Mercedes Moné was wank.
Has Mercedes had a good match in AEW?
No,
because she's not a good wrestler.
I know, and I think I know why.
I think she's had one
chip on the shoulder.
She's not a good wrestler.
Oh, okay, no. The Sky Blue match was all right, actually. Right, no. Mercedes is very good at wrestling one way. The WWE way. She's very good at that. She was very good at that for a long period of time. Since she left WWE and has to prove everything on her own, she is now trying to wrestle a different style. She thinks she's good at this style. But the rest of us that have either been around the business or watched it more than once can tell that she is not good at this style.
She hasn't paid her
Her
dues.
timing has gone to shit, and everybody in this room knows how bad I am with timing in professional wrestling. She has none anymore. She's got the worst finisher in the wrestling industry. It just is. A knife edge chop would look better.
It's up there with the
Name
Judas.
one that's worse.
It's up there.
And
with-
also from
Judas
Judas effect. Like all out, she needs to learn to get some to wig glue as well. To see her go, my wig, and then there was one point in the match where Sheeda kicks her right, and then she goes to her, stop pulling me wig, and then Sheeda knees her in the head. But it wasn't like loud on the telly; it was just enough where you could just pick it up. And she was flat. But you know, for the amount of money that Tony Khan's pays her to get something out, she's about as useless as a reclaimed wood fucking dough, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, was another week of why we're not monetized. All right. Okay, gents. Well, we are out of time. I would like to thank all three of you for joining me in this little thought experiment. I hope you will join me again in the future because I'd like to do this every week. And always remember, Jimmy, where can they find you?
Just follow that tag right there on X. And I've just recently brought the pot back. I'm stumbling over words, man. I almost made it through the whole show without doing it. Positively Awesome Wrestling is back. Follow this tag right here. We're going live every Thursday now at 5 o'clock Central Time. That's like 11 o'clock y'all's time. So I'm trying to make it a little bit more easy for people across the seas to enjoy the show because I like to incorporate the comments and everything into it. I like talking with the people who are watching. So if you like to do that kind of stuff, watch the show on Thursdays and we can do that. And then hopefully I'm back doing this stuff with Nick. And then I'm trying to do literally everything I get my hands in right now. So just keep an eye on this tag and then you'll see me wherever I tell you to go.
And remember, ladies and gents, we are but four geeks obsessed with a good show. And our opinion means nothing without yours in the comments below. See you next week. Simon?
Wrestling Legion, where we make it make sense.
Toodles.